You can get everything you say you wanted and still feel like something's wrong with you. Nothing's broken, you're not ungrateful, and you're not in crisis. Things just feel off. Like you took a long time climbing a mountain, only to reach the top and realize the view wasn't what you thought it would be. Like you expected to feel complete, and instead you just feel uncertain. We spend so much time talking about how to get the thing that almost nobody talks about what happens after you get it. The whole framework you're handed is work hard, achieve things, feel better. That's the deal. At least that's what we're led to believe. Except it isn't. And the disconnect between the achievement and the feeling, that's where a lot of people are living, quietly wondering what's wrong with them. Viola Davis is one of the most decorated actresses alive. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. She's one of the few people in history to achieve EGOT status, winning all 4 major entertainment awards. So by any measurable standard, she won. She did it. She proved whatever needed to be proved, right? And she still had to sit in a therapist's office, untangling a version of herself that was formed in poverty, in trauma, in a childhood she describes as one of the hardest stories she's ever had to tell. Not because the awards didn't matter, they did, but they didn't erase the shame she'd been carrying with her for years. And her story points to something a lot of people experience. Here's the assumption most people never question: that achievement is a before and after story. You're one person before the success, you become a different person after. The work, the results, the recognition, those are the things that rewrite you. But that's not how identity works. And deep down, most people already know this. They just haven't been able to name it. Think about someone you know, maybe yourself, who got the promotion, or finished the degree, or started the business, or finally hit the goal they'd been chasing for years, and then kept waiting to feel like a different person, kept waiting for the internal experience to catch up with the external reality. It doesn't automatically catch up. And the reason is that the story you formed about yourself didn't form from your accomplishments. It formed from your earliest experiences, the moments that happened before you had any framework for making sense of them. Viola Davis grew up in extreme poverty. She's described rooting through garbage for food as a child. She grew up in an environment that was, by her own account, full of chaos and instability, and she built a story, the way every child in that situation builds a story, about what she was worth, what she could expect, what kind of person she was. Then she became one of the most celebrated performers in the world. Her circumstances had changed completely. What she believed about herself hadn't. New circumstances don't automatically rewrite old identities. You can be a wildly successful person and still be operating from the internal framework of someone who learned early that they weren't enough, or that they had to earn their place, or that the other shoe was always about to drop, or that wanting things was dangerous because wanting things led to disappointment. Those aren't personality traits. They're conclusions. There's stories you built to make sense of what was happening when you were too young to know better. And the tricky part is that those stories are incredibly good at surviving. They're adaptive, they morph. A kid who felt invisible becomes an adult who over-explains themselves in meetings, who can't take a compliment, who keeps doing more because more is the only language they learn for I matter. Achievement doesn't touch that. It can actually make it worse because now you have more to lose, more to protect, more evidence that the story was right when things inevitably get hard. That's why so many high-achieving people still feel like frauds. It's not imposter syndrome as a personality quirk. It's an identity that hasn't been updated to match the life. The reason Viola Davis's memoir, Finding Me, landed the way it did wasn't because of the celebrity details. It was because she was willing to say out loud what a lot of people feel in private. I did everything right, and I still had to go back and do the work I skipped. Not work like productivity, work like excavation. Therapy for her wasn't about managing stress or navigating a difficult career. It was about going back and finding the version of herself that formed under impossible conditions and actually looking at her, not performing for her, not achieving over her, looking at her. That's a different kind of work than most people are prepared for, because most of the self-help framework is still oriented around strategy. Read the right books, build the right habits, set the right goals. And none of that is wrong. But it's upstream work. It's adding input without examining the filter everything is running through. If the filter, so the identity, is still operating from the old story, the new habits run through it. The new goals get filtered through it. The new wins get interpreted through it. And that's why change feels slow or incomplete or like something keeps pulling you backward. So what do you actually do with this? The starting point is noticing your narrative, not just the behavior. When you avoid something or self-sabotage something or shrink when you didn't mean to, the question isn't just, why did I do that? The question is, what would I have to believe about myself for this behavior to make sense? Because behavior is always in service to a belief. And beliefs about yourself were written early in situations that no longer exist by a version of you that was doing the best they could with what they had. Viola Davis didn't stop being Viola Davis to do this work. She became more of herself because of it. She said in interviews that writing the memoir was terrifying and necessary in equal measure because she was finally telling a story instead of running from it. That's not a small thing. Most people never stop to look at the stories they formed about themselves when they were young. They never stop to ask what those stories taught them to believe about their worth or their potential or who they could become. The problem isn't usually a lack of information. You know what you should do, but the version of you who shows up to do it is still holding on to that old story. Still operating from the conclusions of a person who had less information, fewer options, fewer reasons to trust that it would work out. Viola Davis didn't become legendary because she outran her past. She became more fully herself when she stopped trying to. The awards didn't give her that. Looking honestly at her story did, because no amount of success can do the work of changing what you believe about yourself. If you're watching this and you need some one-on-one conversation with me, where we can flesh out what you're dealing with, join my school community. The link is in the description. And please, share this video with someone who's been having the same conversation with themselves. I'll see you in the next one.